Hey guys, and welcome to the Indie Game Culture Podcast, a podcast about indie games. We're here with Melika, we're here with JT, we're here with me, Cal, and today we are talking about indie games once again. We will be talking about all of the showcases that have been happening. We talk about all the demos that have been there to be played, and all of the stuff that we've been doing to ignore said demos and showcases and just play the stuff we missed from years ago. We'll be doing all of that. But before that, how are you guys?
I'm just going to kick it off. Today, I went to a restaurant and I had the best focaccia of my entire life. And I am very much a bread girl, so this is high praise. But like, it was so crispy on the top and so smooth and melt in your mouth in the middle. Like, I could not believe it. And like, there was like rosemary, but it wasn't too intense. It was like infused perfectly throughout, and there was sea salt sprinkled on top, and it was incredible. And there was like oil to dip it in. It was the best bread of my. And to demonstrate how good it was. Of everything I have done in this past week, I am choosing to mention the bread. That is how good the bread was.
Sounds awfully tasty.
Is that an Englishism that you're calling it focaccia? Is it not focaccia?
I don't know. I've always called it focaccia, but like I've heard like Americans call it focaccia, so I don't know is the honest answer. I call it focaccia. Could be focaccia. I think they're both okay. I kind of.
Oh no.
I just mix and match. I don't know how it's supposed to be pronounced. All I know is that that's how it's supposed to taste because it was amazing.
Flat crispy bread. That's what we'll call it.
Yeah. But this one was the thing. This one was like, well, people listening to podcasts can't hear, but like it was a good couple of inches thick. Like I was expecting it to be much thinner, and when I saw how thick it was, I was like, well, this is gonna be like really chewy. But it wasn't. It was so soft. It was incredible. I couldn't believe it.
That sounds so good.
A fortnight dominated by lovely bread.
I'm not exaggerating. It was like so amazing. I just can't stop thinking about the bread.
I mean, bread is good.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
As for myself, I have been actually busy not playing games. I felt like a school kid, like on the day of exam, like cramming in a couple of games just so I had something to chat about. Because I was doing like adult stuff. I was turning up the garden. I literally had to dig up the entire garden to regrass it. Oh my God, we have the most solid garden ever. we have like the end house. So whenever they built the house, obviously all the runoff from like concrete and bricks all just gets thrown into our garden, and then they grass it over and everything. Digging it up, just bricks. And then we have a tree as well. So there was like loads. Oh, it's like a cherry blossom tree. I don't exactly know. That's what it is. But I had to like pull up huge like branches from the roots, and
wow,
it was not fun, but it is
now
done.
Shattered.
Oh, I'm in a lot of pain. Do you remember how I said that I don't train anymore, and whenever I do, it hurts? Well,
oh no,
that's where I'm at. But yeah, I managed to slip in a few games towards the end there. Once I got that all done, just lying there with a fan on, with all my joints aching, just trying to hold the controller. But that's where I'm at.
How about you, JT?
Yeah, well, I think I mentioned beforehand, but I did a big race this last week, and I was also visiting some family at hot springs and stuff. And it was like a very relaxing and then a very brutal week with that race. So
yeah,
that was interesting. I'm very like relieved to I had a good time, but I'm good to get back to like just playing games and writing about them.
I didn't even realize you were a mountain biker.
Yeah, no, I love it. I raced in college, and yeah, it was a fun sport, but it's very demanding for those long endurance races. There were some parts where I just had to lie down and I just like watched the Games Fest. It's like, what will I do with my free time?
No. Whenever you say mountain biking, is it like the really extreme one where you're going weaving through trees and all?
Yes, it's it's very technical and it's very bumpy, and like you have to stop yourself from falling. I still think it's safer than road biking because you don't have to worry about like getting hit by a car and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, you will crash and hurt yourself quite a bit.
And
there's no way to get around
it. You get that like butterflies in your stomach nervousness.
Oh,
it's really exciting.
Yeah, like you actually go up in the air a little bit on some things, and it's really scary, but
I bet it feels good. I bet it's scary in a good way.
Yeah, and also it's very nice. At one point I gave like the last of my water to a family friend that I met on the trail, and I was questioning that decision a little bit later, but he came up to me later and it's like, "Oh, JT, thank you so much for the water." And I was like, "Oh, no problem." And I was just like, "Oh, why did I do that?"
You're too nice, man. You're too nice.
I regret it sometimes.
Exert yourself more, JT.
All right.
And as well as that, I skateboard quite regularly. That whole thing weaving between the trees at high speed, that gives me the fear.
Oh,
So fair play to you.
thank you. It's a lot of practice, but it's like any sport. Once you do it enough, it's like, oh, it's just muscle memory.
It is a fair point, though. The trees don't move, the cars do.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we have a lot of games to chat about, and the middle section is going to be a lot more bumper than it was last time, as promised. So we better talk about the games that we done been playing. So we're going to move into the next section, which is transition across the screen.
Oh.
Games we've done been playing. So I am happy to kick it off because I didn't do an awful lot, like I said, just trying to get a tiny list together. So I will kick it off. Naturally, because my rat brain works in a particular way. After we had our discussion about walking simulators last week, my brain decided to do its usual thing, and I played a walking simulator. One I'd already played, just went back. The reason being, I found out that it had a PS5 upgrade, and it had a platinum, and it would take me a couple of hours. So I went and played What Remains of Edith Finch again.
Oh, you like that one?
Oh man.
I do like that one. Going back to it, even with the PS5 upgrades, and it kind of adds in some kind of dual sensey stuff, like whenever you flick through pages, it has like the triggers and a little bit more haptic feedback, so that's nice. But there was a lot of things that I was like, oh, you could have fixed a lot more. I remembered that game being very janky, like a lovely story, really touching, but a really janky game, and it still is.
I know.
Like the sections where you're going through and you're the cat and then the shark and then the snake, that was so janky, and the whole like having to grab things and move it up with like not motion controls, but like have to push it in a certain direction for it to move or it won't at all. The UI is just not my friend in that game. Don't like it. But it was very nice to revisit, and I got my platinum, so that was nice.
Oh yes. I don't think I asked, but what was your favorite story in like all of the stories of that game?
I like the vast majority of them, but I have to say the cannery one is definitely the standout of them all.
Okay, I think we talked about that, but it's so graphic and it's so unnerving. Just like, oh, it's this nice story, and then he's like, don't chop off your hand.
They're all very dark stories, like in their own way. There's some of them that are a lot more like short and almost comical in a way, but some of them are like, oh,
yeah,
that took a left turn. Yeah, a very nice game. And then the other one that I played that wasn't for review was Clive and Wrench. I've been meaning to go and actually play at that one. It's a mascot platformer, which will play in.
It sounds familiar.
It'll play into what we're chatting about later. Clive and Wrench. It's essentially like if I was going to describe it in mascot platformer terms.
Oh, it looks fantastic.
It's I wouldn't go that far, but it is quite enjoyable.
Colorful and cute.
I did say to you that you would very much enjoy it.
Oh yeah, that's why I remember it now, because you reckon. Yeah. Oh, it does look great. Oh, it looks so fun.
To describe it, it's the concept of the game is not strong. It's kind of like Crash Bandicoot Warped, basically, where you just go back in time.
How is that not strong?
It's kind of like. I don't really put a lot of stock into stories and platformers because you just need that nudge out the door. That's all it really needs to be, and that's what it is. But even still, like the characters aren't voiced, so it's very Crash Bandicoot in that way too. That there was a reason they did that back in the 90s. There's a reason that they should have like at least some sort of voice, or if you're gonna not do the voice, make it a bit more coherent in a different way. It's just not really all that coherent, but it's fine because it's a platformer. As for the platforming, it's a little bit shaky. It's not to the point where you will not enjoy it. You get used to it. You kind of get the finer bits of it, and you make sense of it, and then it's good to go. The key mechanic that will keep you coming back for more, I suppose, is basically Clive is just your typical anthropomorphic rabbit character.
He seems great.
He runs, he jumps. That's all he does. And then you have Wrench, which is your little monkey. And basically what you use him for is a helicopter. So you just swing him like this here, like over the top of your head, and you can use him as a propeller. And that's about the height of the game. Everything else is just like traditional mascot platformery stuff. And it's just a nice little escape. You don't have to think too hard. So I'll just work my way through that.
Yeah, it looks
And
adorable.
yeah, Melika will eat that up if she ever
Oh, I
comes near it.
absolutely would. Because the problem is I don't really buy games very often because I just play what's on Game Pass.
Mhm.
But I'm gonna be running Crash Team Rumble though, so.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, no, I pulled it up.
And the thing I liked about Clive and Wrench as well is one person made that, and I'm pretty sure they're like
One
from.
person.
Wow.
Yeah,
That looked
It looks
fairly
so
good
much
for
more
one
developed
person.
based on the screenshots.
That's why I make alliances for it being, and it's only a little bit janky. Like it's not to the point where you would go, "Oh, this is awful." It's like, oh, you have to make some alliances for it. But one person made that, and it's very impressive.
Yeah, that does sound impressive. That's one person.
And just I enjoy this because I'm from around there, or at least adjacent. The guy from the UK made it. So like, if you're going around the first level is kind of like Tiny Kin-esque in the way you're going around like a small house level, and there's all little brands, and they're making puns at like British brands.
Oh,
That's brilliant.
That's quite cool.
Also, Tinykin, what a game.
Very good, very good. And then the last one that I've been playing that is a full-fledged game. I'll chat about a couple of little demos briefly as well. But the other one I've been playing is for review, and it's Fall of Porcupine. It's one that
I've been playing that as well.
that popped up on my like the Wholesome Games Direct that I was like, oh, I think I'll talk about that game. I was like, oh, yeah, it looked very cute. How was it?
Yeah, I have mixed opinions on it. I have mixed opinions on it. So
I've only played a couple of hours, but I don't like the pacing at all.
That's my main problem with it.
It's
100%.
so
That's my main
slow.
problem with it. I've been really dragging my feet on the review because I can't stay awake.
I started it a couple of nights ago, and I haven't been able to force myself to keep going with it yet because it's just it has also what I don't know if it's the same on PlayStation. There is a glitch on Xbox, so you know how the mini games you have to press certain buttons.
Yes.
It does not register the RT button, and I was like, "Is my controller broken?" No, my controller's fine. It won't. You press RB and it lights up, but it still doesn't like act as if you've pressed it. So I just constantly fail the mini games because I literally can't press it, and I don't know what's going on with that, and it's really frustrating because the mini game is the only good part of it.
Yeah. What I would say about that is, aside from one achievement where you have to like ace a day and get like A on your report sheet, the mini games and the evaluations are just arbitrary. They don't really matter.
Oh,
that's another thing I don't like though. I don't want them to be just arbitrary. I want them to affect it. It's just my main issue, apart from the pacing of Fall of Porcupine, it doesn't really feel like I'm doing much. There's not that much to interact with. Like, you know, even when you're just like walking, because it is basically just a walking simulator with extra steps. But like, even when you're just like walking through, there's no like, you know, you can't, I don't know, kick a stone or like knock something over or jump over a box. There's nothing. It's just background, nothing to interact with except for the reading stuff. And it's like, I get that he wanted to write a story. I don't actually know who produced it, but I get that he wanted to write a story or whatever. And I appreciate the story elements of it, but it's just told way too slow and it could be done so much better. And like, at least let us run. Come on. If you can't interact with the background, at least let me run. So yeah, at the moment, I don't know if it gets better. Like I said, I haven't played much of it yet, but at the moment, my review is not going to be too kind because I'm very impatient with walking simulators, as we discussed last time.
Well, I wrapped it up today, and like the story elements of it are quite nice. Like I'm not going to go out of my way and say like they're mind blowing. There are some very nice moments, and there's some characters that I quite enjoyed, whilst others were just like unmemorable. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but some of them are really good. But the pacing, like I said, it's the key issue there. There's so many moments where you're just walking long distances with nothing in between, and there's also a weird thing about the sound design. There's so many like nice little tunes that go on throughout, but there's so many moments and like long extended periods of time where there's no music at all, and it's they don't even fill it with ambient sound. It's just silence.
The one part I'll forgive it is at the start when I did quite like it actually, because I was like, where the hell's the music? And then the main character's like, well, where's the music? And then he's like, the NPC is talking to, oh yeah, sorry, I'll fix that. And then the music starts. So I thought that was quite funny, but yeah.
Yeah, you just need some sort of, even if the ambient noise was turned up and you could hear people chattering and the water flowing or whatever, that'd be fine.
I agree. It was not enough. It's just so, it feels empty quite a lot of the time, I felt.
And there's certain aspects of it that are broken as well. Like there's some dialogue trees that if you can't select them, or they'll double up, or there's certain mini games that just don't register your commands. There's certain things where I don't think there's a chapter select as far as I know, so you'd have to play the
I don't know, but one time, fun fact, if you pause the game to like go to the toilet or something, it will start you again from the previous checkpoint.
It will do.
So I was like, I'm just going to pause it real quick, and I came back, and it was like literally less than 5 minutes, and there was no like quick resume or anything. It was like, no, let's start you again. And the checkpoints are so few and far between as well. It was ridiculous.
And a weird thing that
and you can't save.
Yeah, you can't save, and there's also something that I've not seen on PlayStation, because I thought it was PlayStation functionality, not the games. But this game doesn't do save states, which I don't understand.
How long is the game then? Like, can you finish it all in one go? Or are you expected to? Or
I mean, I don't think you could, just because it is that slow. You would really struggle.
I don't know how long it is. I've put about 2 hours into it. I've not got very far.
I think I did 8 hours, as far as I know.
Yeah, like if I wasn't reviewing this one, I would not be playing it, quite frankly.
Yeah, I regret taking it on. I don't want it anymore.
But it looked fun in the trailer, and all the people were like saying, "Is this your new favorite indie game?" And I was like, maybe, but the answer is overwhelming. No, it is not. This is an indie game I wish I had never taken on.
There are some nice things about it. It's just there's too many bad things about it for me to call it even average. It is quite poor.
I think it's going to be one of the lower, because to be fair, we rate a lot meaner on indie game culture than I do for my own personal site. So I think for me, I'll probably put it about 6.5, but that is very low for my site.
Yeah, well, I was thinking 5, 6, so
yeah,
that tracks. But then it is me as well, so
yeah, you're quite harsh.
So yeah, played that one, and then in terms of the demos I played, this is just me trying to cram in a little bit more. So I played the Viewfinder demo. I have to be the one on point for that, because I think it's not on.
It's not on Xbox.
It's not on Xbox. Yeah,
so devastated. Devastated.
It is a very nice concept. They've only showed about like 20 minutes of gameplay, if even, and it's just basically showing like the first chunk of the game, and then as the game goes on, you get access to a camera, so you can or you get access to something else. I can't quite remember. It was a couple days ago, but it gives you a little bit more complexity to the puzzles, but they're not all that.
Does it work better than Superliminal? Because I found that Superliminal didn't always work the way it was supposed to work.
I've not played Superliminal, so I can't answer
that. I love the concept of Superliminal. It was kind of very similar to Viewfinder. So with Superliminal, it's about looking at things from different angles to change the size of them. But I found it just did not work the way it theoretically should have worked, especially with like changing the angles and like moving things about. And it was like, it got very frustrating because it felt like it should be working. Like the concept, fantastic. In the execution, not bad, but not good enough to keep me hooked. Whereas Viewfinder, based on the trailer, looked like it was working much better.
It's definitely one that I'll play through to finish, but I think it'll be very hard to put together a game that has like tough conceptual puzzles that'll like hold people. It's kind of similar to a game I played called. Have you played Maquette?
No, I don't think we've heard of that one.
Maquette was like a puzzle game by Annapurna, like that they backed it, and it was like it used fractal game design to kind of put together a world within a world within a world, and the further out you went, it became bigger and smaller.
I like the look of it though.
So it was kind of using that kind of like size and proportions and perspective to put a puzzle together. Same kind of thing. Again, it really tailed off towards the end because the concept was good and it just fell away.
That's a shame.
Yeah, that's like the thing about stuff always hurts my brain a little bit. Just like Superliminal, like some of the puzzles, I couldn't conceptually think about it because it just sounded too impossible to me. Like
I felt there was like a lack of control in Superliminal as well, because you had to like throw things in the air and then quickly change which way you were standing, and it was very frustrating.
Right, and like
I wanted to be able to like manipulate it a lot more.
Yes.
Actively, which like in Viewfinder you're actively changing the angle of the picture, so theoretically I feel like it should work better in Viewfinder than it did in Superliminal, but we'll have to see.
Right.
I think Viewfinder could do well. I think it does need to have probably a decent narrative alongside it, or it will
also
not
good soundtrack, because otherwise you're going to get bored with all that moving about.
Yeah, I think the concept's enough to do a decent game, but they need all the other bits as well, or it won't pull it off. And then the last one, and I don't know if people consider this a indie game because there's definitely a lot of money behind it. But I played the demo for Lies of P.
I knew you were going to say that. That's the only demo I played. As soon as you're like, it's an indie, but there's lots of money behind it, I was like, he's going to say Lies of P. I knew it. I played that one as well.
That's surprising that you played that one, because that's very much me and JT's wheelhouse.
Yeah, well, I was trying to push myself out of my comfort zone, and I immediately regretted it because I did it on stream. Like it wasn't like a proper stream back. I was sort of testing myself to come back into Twitch. So I was like, I'm just going to test myself on this thing, and it was horrible because it's like a Souls-like, and that's not my strong point at all. And I just kept on dying and having to repeat and repeat. And I was like, this is a great game. It is so not for me. But I do think it was good. It was just completely not right for me.
And what I would say as well, it's a very accessible Souls-like as well.
Leave me alone.
Oh, that's a burn.
It was hard. Okay, I did okay. I got to the first boss, but then I couldn't get past the first boss.
Yeah, it's very similar to Bloodborne in a lot of ways. I don't think it's.
I've heard people refer to it as like an indie Bloodborne.
Yeah, it's not as refined. It's got little kinks. I can't put my finger on why I don't like it, and I think I will when the full game comes and I play it. But at the minute, just based on what I've played, there's something about it I don't like, and it's.
Is it that it's hard?
No, I can deal with that.
I think my main issue was getting frustrated because, like, sometimes I try to dodge out the way and it wouldn't dodge fast enough, and I'll get killed. Souls-like just make me really angry. I can rarely get angry in games, but I get so angry when I die. Especially when I had like tiniest bit of health left and I've killed them, and then some random tiny enemy comes at me from the back after a big enemy, and I just get so mad so easily.
Yeah, you're definitely not the target audience.
Yeah, no, I thought I like the look of it. I like the idea of the narrative. It's like a kind of spin on the Pinocchio story. So I was like, I'll give it a go. Maybe this will be the Souls-like for me, but it was not, and I hated it.
Yeah, I think that might be why some people are drawn to it. The whole like gothic steampunk take on Pinocchio.
It's got a really cool concept for sure. And like I said, I think it plays fine. I think it's just not for me. But I don't have I'm not, because some games I'll play them and I'm like, this sucks and it's not for me. Whereas with some I'm like, this is great, but it's not for me.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's trying to tell a story a lot more than like From Software games would do. From Software is basically like you work the story out for yourself, just based on what's there.
You just have to read item descriptions for the most part to piece it together. Otherwise, you have no idea what's going on.
What do From Software make?
Oh, and Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and Bloodborne.
Souls, right?
They're the ones.
Yeah,
they're the enemy. I avoid Dark Souls like the plague.
That's fair. It's definitely an acquired taste.
Yeah.
But in terms of how I enjoyed Lies of P, based on like all the other Souls I played, like Bloodborne's one of my probably the favorite in terms of all the Souls likes that came out, and it's very similar in terms of like there's definitely more of a risk and reward sort of quality to Lies of P, where like it really encourages you to go in, try and hit to get more of your like echo or whatever they call it, so that you can do the bigger hits and get more of your health back. And then they limit the health that you actually have more so than the other games because it wants you to go after it.
Yeah.
So yeah, very much Bloodborne in the sense that whenever you lost health, it gave you that little window to get your health back and smack at people.
I got so annoyed when I'll get really close to retrieving my ergo and then it'd like kill me and I would lose it all. That's another thing that made me really mad.
You're very much the risk side of risk and reward, always.
I wanted rewards.
Yeah, no, I
wish there was a bank.
I loved Bloodborne. It's such an aggressive game because like you had to keep on the offense to like get your health back and just keep the enemies staggered. And yeah, I'm excited to try that. I was too busy having a chance, but yeah, I also want to ask you, compared to Bloodborne, does it have that same kind of health mechanic where like you have to collect it from enemies, or is it more just like tied to like refillables and stuff? Because that really annoyed me at Bloodborne because you had to keep grinding enemies to get your health back.
It's kind of like grinding enemies to get your health back, it's kind of like you have to attack to get it back. You get like a base amount, and it sort of works like Estus in that way, but you get significantly less than you normally would. Like you get one echo.
I think the pulse cells are what refill you, and they like fill somewhere between the third. Not even a half. It's more. It's about a third of your health bar that they fill up, and it's like I need more. I was hoping they would refill the whole thing each time.
Yeah. So you basically just have to be pretty precise and always on the attack to keep alive.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to try that out. I love Souls.
It's very much in my wheelhouse. That's the kind of thing I liked about Bloodborne. I really don't like the slow pace of Dark Souls. I didn't really enjoy Dark Souls whenever I was a bit younger, and I stepped away from them, and then I came back, and Bloodborne kind of got me into the series as a whole. Then I went back to Dark Souls, and I played through them, and I liked them, but I just find them really, really slow paced by comparison.
Yeah, that's very fair. It's like if you start dying to some bosses, you could be stuck in an area for hours that you should be able to get through in like 20 minutes. So
it's just the whole hide behind your shield and manage your stamina. I'm just like, no, let me dodge, let me move around. Yeah, that's what I've been doing. A very limited amount. Review season is very much not upon us at the minute, so that's basically why.
I mean, I'll go next based on the fact that I do not have much more to add because you've gone for two of my already very limited games. So yeah, so I played a bit of Fall of Porcupine. I played some of the demo for Lies of P, and then I was like, well, I've been playing loads of games these last couple of weeks, so I must have loads to say. But it's just 90% I've just been playing Cassette Beasts. I just love that game. Like I don't understand what it is. I'm just so drawn to it. I feel like I'm much more drawn to it than most people probably play it and then play something else. Whereas I'm getting into it, like, it's very similar to Pokemon, as I mentioned last time, and I'm getting as into it as I would a regular Pokemon game. Like, you guys should go to Indie Game Culture and check out the amazing guide I wrote for Cassette Beasts, because I went deep. I went so deep in that guide, like talking about which beasts to go for, because I have so many opinions. Because like I reckon I could probably, like, same as I could for Pokemon, I reckon I could identify any of the Cassette Beasts, 120 of them. I just love them so much. But yeah, I've been playing loads of that, and then I've been playing Dordogne, which I'm in the process of reviewing for Indie Game Culture as well. So that's the one I was mentioning last time, was like on my horizon, and I know a bit more about it now, and it turns out it is essentially just another walking simulator. There's so many of them these days. So basically, you play as you're an older, well, not older woman, you're like your sort of 20, 30-year-old woman returning to your grandma's house after she's just passed away, and you have like no memories of her or that place. And then like as you go into the house, you'll like find things that will jog your memory, and you'll sort of be transported back through a portal, and you'll play as your younger self. So it kind of switches between the past and the present, which I think is a pretty cool mechanic. And then, but it's very basic as well. Like all you're really doing is walking through, collecting the story elements, and but you can also find like words. So either I'll tell you actually one thing that really, really annoys me about Dordogne. It's the opposite from the Fall of Porcupine. So where Fall of Porcupine has too little to interact with, Dordogne makes a meal out of everything. If you want to open a door, you do not click the door to open it. You have to hover a key, like move it up and down to like line it up with the keyhole. Then you have to twist the key, twist the handle, and push the door to open the door. And it's like, what? This isn't fun. This isn't exciting. This is just extra steps for no reason. And they've made it so needlessly extra. And it makes me really annoyed, because it's pretty much every interaction. It's like make a tea. It's like pick up the tea bag, dip it in the water, pick up the spoon, tilt the spoon, stir the spoon, take the tea bag.
It's very much the same problem I had with like what Remains of Edith Finch. That's like that to a T. Basically, you want to open a door, you have to do it in the most like tedious way possible.
So convoluted, and I just don't care for it at all. So that part does annoy me, but I do really like the story. And I was streaming it on Twitch, so I was like doing different voices for all the characters, so that was fun. I like doing that. And one thing I do like about it is you have a camera and like a photo album you're trying to fill, so you can like on each sort of chapter you can take up to 10 pictures, and then you choose one to put in your photo album, and you also like collect various words throughout, and you can like put the words together to make a poem. And like you find like stickers which you can put on. I wish you could put multiple stickers and photos actually, because you can only have one photo, one sticker, one poem, and like one sound that you've collected, because sometimes you'll encounter like sounds. I wish I could like mix and match more for my photo pages. I know then that's not the main point of the game, but I really enjoy stuff like that. Yeah. So I definitely feel that could have been improved by saying, you know, as long as it fits on the page, put as many photos and words and stickers as you like. But I do like that element, and I think the story's actually getting pretty fun. So you found this like young boy, and he's like on a treasure hunt, and you're like joining him in and stuff. And there's a couple of puzzles. There's not enough puzzles to make it interesting. Like I'm not enjoying it. I'm just not fully enjoying it. It might get better though. It is starting to improve. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be anywhere near my like games of the year or whatever for the roundup we do at the end of the year, but I'm enjoying it well enough. I'm not hating it like I am with Fall of Porcupine.
Is it kind of as we thought, the whole like style over substance sort of thing?
Oh
yeah, it is. Like I think this is why the trailer was so empty. It's because you don't do anything. I was like, they're keeping the gameplay a secret to surprise us on launch. It's like there is no gameplay. But to be fair, the graphics do kind of make up for it. They are very beautiful. because it's like all sort of like watercolory, and like they don't always fill out the entire page, so sometimes you'll only sort of see the bit you're walking through. And yeah, I do like the look of it. Soundtrack's fine, it's nothing special, but yeah, it's the gameplay that lets it down. It's I would, even though I complain when walking simulators don't do enough, I would be less annoyed with it if it did less on this occasion, just because it is just so convoluted. And for what? Like, I wouldn't mind if it was fun, but it's not. It's just so needless, and it's like, why are you making me move the key down or pick up a tea bag? This isn't fun. It'd be much more fun if you had to, like, I don't know, time the button to like dunk the tea bag at the right time or something. That would be an element of fun. This is just move it around the screen until you get it where you want it. And I just, no, this is so not what I find fun. Or I just can't picture anyone finding that fun. I don't understand why they've put that in.
I think it's not to get too like a bigwig journal about it, but like it is something I'm noticing with indie games at the moment, where it's like indie games are they've never been a kind of phenomenon where there was a lot of bloat. Everything was very much meticulously put there, because you have to code all that, and you only have a certain team. And now they're putting in these really like arbitrary things to go, okay, well, we're going to do like a 10-hour experience, but it would be a much better 2-hour experience.
I completely agree with you there. Oh, look, that's on the same page for once.
Wait till later.
Oh, I just love the idea of having like 5 steps to open a door. Like, stare at the door, feel the door out, like put the key in, wiggle it.
Oh my god, you should have seen the excessiveness of getting the mail out of the mailbox. Now that was a thing. So
why does that need to be excessive? What are the steps for it?
The mailbox was locked and the key was at the bottom and you could see it, but no, you had to individually take out each letter, read each letter, scroll all the way. You couldn't just read it, you had to like scroll all the way down, say, yes, I've read it. Then, oh no, it still opens. Let me pick up the box, turn it around to back, unscrew each screw, and then take the key out. And it's just, oh my god. It was so... I was just sat there and like, is this real? Did they really waste their time coding this? Like, and it glitched quite a bit as well. Like there were a few times where like it would just freeze on the screen. I couldn't back out. I couldn't move anything, and I'd have to like unload the game. And this was like another one where the checkpoints could do with being closer together, and I'd have to go through the same boring steps that I've just gone through, and it was driving me insane.
Well, there's another indie game I don't need to wait 2 years for. I can just check that one off.
Yeah.
Any others, or can JT jump in?
JT, like I said, just Cassette Beast or Don't, Fallen Porcupine, and Liza P for me. But a lot of Cassette Beasts. I feel like I'm not emphasizing enough just how much Cassette Beasts.
I still really need to get into Pokemon after some of the things that you recommended, Callum. I haven't had a chance yet.
I'm still trying to get over the fact that you have never played a Pokemon game. It is ridiculous.
It just never came up. I didn't have the chance to do it.
Did you not have a childhood? How does Pokemon not come up,
I did.
JT?
I never got a Game Boy or any of those.
Not a good enough excuse.
Surely you came across that big yellow mouse and went, what's that?
I know what that mouse is. I've seen it everywhere.
Oh, dear.
Oh. But yeah,
I've sent you a ROM hack. You need to get an emulator, or maybe I'm not saying that, but you should potentially get an emulator.
Hypothetically.
All right, I promise
get an emulator.
I will hypothetically do that.
And then allegedly you could play.
Yes.
Or buy a Game Boy, because they're good to keep. They just keep rising in value.
These days, JT. There is no excuse in this day and age, with eBay existing, for you to have never just bought a Game Boy and played Pokemon.
In fairness, it is very expensive to buy a Game Boy now.
Okay,
are they collector's editions?
Get a DS.
Okay, I'll give those a shot.
I think I have a Game Boy Color in this house somewhere, and I think you buy those for like a couple £100.
You're kidding?
Yeah,
what?
They went up drastically.
Wow.
It's got Pokemon Yellow in it.
Oh yeah. Yellow was my first. I love it.
Little Pikachu following around.
Okay, well, I'll promise I'll get to that eventually, hypothetically.
You haven't played Pokemon this week, but what have you played?
I have played Grey Hill Incident, which, going off of the Walking Hill trend, and it was, I'd say it's a pseudo walking sim horror game where you take place in like a 90s like rural American area where UFOs invade, and it's all little green men coming to abduct you and probe you, and it's very cliche, but so it's intended to be a horror game, but there are like the monsters are just little aliens that are smaller than you that you can whack with a baseball bat, and you can
That's exactly
shoot
what I said
with a
off the
gun.
trailer.
And the thing is, it got a lot of bad reception, and I can understand it because it was a bad horror game. It had a lot of problems with just how was the narrative, how like you would play through it, and even like the audio design. There are a lot of times the characters would speak over each other, and I wouldn't mind it once, but it happened frequently to the point where it's like, yeah, this wasn't audio mixed properly. But it had a lot of that B-movie charm too, just like that feeling of whacking an alien and it making a sound, or some of the characters' lines.
What kind of sound of it?
It was like, and it was hilarious. And even though it was supposed to be a horror game, I wasn't scared really at all, but I was laughing almost throughout it. And there's this one line too where an 8-year-old roasted you for like your failed marriage. I was like, you can't keep it together. You can't even hold together your marriage. And I was like, whoa. I was just laughing as hard as I could.
You take that to heart.
I just had that experience, and I was like, you know what? Okay, this wasn't a good horror game, and there were a lot of problems, but I had such a fun time playing through some parts of it, and I'd probably only give it a 6 at most, but it had some charm to it, and I think it was like a lot of the negativity was overblown, but for the price it was, I think it was $25. I think that's the price point needs to be adjusted, and then people would have a better time with it. But
is it one of those like kind of it's so bad it's quite good?
Yes, I would say so, but I could also it's kind of pricey for what it is, and you can finish it within 3 hours. That's how long it took me. It's like 3 hours for $25, and I was like, that's
dollars for a 3-hour game is excessive.
Yeah. But
like even Hollow Knight was only like £15 when it came out.
Yeah, and Hollow Knight you could play for like hundreds of hours too. And...
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it had some B-movie charm. I wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for a scary horror game, or even like maybe walking sim, but for a silly game to maybe just play through with friends, you might have a good time. But yeah, it had some quirky charm, so I enjoyed it for what it was.
Now, based on the trailer, I seen that it had like gunplay and stuff. Did it actually have any like?
You had one revolver. You could scavenge for bullets inside of houses, and it took 2 bullets to kill an enemy. And basically, what it was is if you wanted to skip a section, you could just shoot the aliens and say like, okay, I don't have to worry about hiding from them. And even if they catch you, you just have to spam E and then whack them with the baseball bat. So there isn't really any challenge. The worst part is trying to find out where to go to for some of the puzzles. There was only a point at the very end where I had no idea what to do, so I just searched it up, like, okay, where's the crowbar? And it was like behind this one shed, and I found it was like, okay. But for the most part, it's a walking sim pretending to be a horror game has a very B-movie quirky, funny charm. So I had a good time with it, but it's
kind
not.
of reminds me of Soma, but not in the good way. Soma was very much like that because the enemies would slow it down and break the pacing, and it is essentially just a scary walking sim. And the enemies in Soma were like taking away from that a bit, but because they were maybe a little bit too difficult, maybe. But this one is more like they're just in the way.
They're a joke. I remember when they first showed one of them on the screen. It was like, oh, it entered the house, and it's just like the size of a small child. It's like, what? Why is just like scared of this?
Everyone probably had like those inflatable aliens as a kid, and they just looked like those inflatable aliens.
It was those. It was literally those guys. And they weren't like running after you. They're just like slowly walking after you. I was like, I can outrun them fairly easily. What's the point? Oh, and one last bit on them. The sound they make, like they would make sounds as they're going about, and one of the sounds was like I remember it really distinctly. It was the Toy Story Buzz Lightyear sound action figure thing, and it wasn't even like modified to sound scary. It just sounded like they were shooting like a toy gun, and it was just adorable. I was like, I saw that, I heard that, I was like, oh, that's so cute.
Well, you want to hear from the scary horror element. Oh.
I don't know if I had the like intended experience with that game, but I still had a good time, so I walked away from it pretty happy. And besides that, I also got to play The Longing, which it's been out for a while, and I enjoyed it. It's like a kind of pseudo idle game where you play as a little coal creature trying to escape this underground, and it's very big, and you can there's like a lot of endless tasks you can do, and you have approximately 400 days to do it, but you can do things to speed up the time, or you can find the way to escape, and it's very gradual, and it's not a game you'd play if you don't have something else you're currently doing. Like for me, I would do like laundry and like walk away, and I just watch the screen. It's like, oh, there's something to click on, and I enjoyed it. It's a nice like slow, easygoing game to just, I don't know, it's good to play after a very challenging, brutal day of I don't know, work, or for me, like I had that bike ride, so it was a very nice escape from that.
That's good.
It's like I don't have to like really push myself. I can just like slowly walk here. Besides that, I played a lot more FTL against my own judgment, and
Nice.
I started getting into Conan Exiles. I know it's not really an indie game, but I figured I'd start trying to maybe write for some of those. But yeah, it's a lot of grinding, so that's gonna be a while before I'm an expert at that. But yeah,
JT's very much taking one for the team in that regard, because Conan Exiles writers are like gold dust.
it requires an insane amount of grinding, and I can understand why there's a demand for those articles, because I was very lost and I had to figure it out on my own or search up all of our own pre-existing articles on that. So yeah,
well, they're the guys that know.
Actually reminded me, there was one other game I played, and you were gonna hate this, Cal. I've been playing that Idle mobile game we saw on Direct, the Cozy Cat Cafe game. I've been playing it, and I've had to watch so many ads because you have to watch ads to do pretty much anything or pay money, and I refuse to pay money, so I just let them bombard my brain with all the ads. But I get to run my own cafe and feed them food.
Yay.
And I've opened a campsite and a bakery now, so it's getting pretty exciting, and I've nearly saved up enough points of the rainbow hearts to get the campfire from the Pride collection.
I want you to listen back. I want you to listen back to this section so that you hear yourself speaking. That's all I want you to do. That's all I'm going to say.
I regret nothing. The cats were cute. I like running my own cafe. I do feel okay. I regret the ads, but it's a necessary evil, because otherwise, how am I going to get DJ Oliver to summon all the guests for me to feed them food, Cal?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't care, but I don't know.
What am I going to do? Not have the lion perform so that people donate more flour for my bread?
Heaven forbid. Just to let the listener in on the narrative of how this went, I was doing a news beat for, I think it was Wholesome Games, and we were sitting watching through it, and I was basically going, an effing mobile game.
We were basically chatting in the group chat at the same time.
And she was like, oh, a mobile game.
Yeah, I was like, yay, Cozy Cats. He was like, oh man, not another mobile game.
It's just swings and polar opposites.
Well, it looks adorable, but also the ads. I can't be expected to watch through all of those forever.
The Wholesome Direct went way too quick. We'll talk about more in the next section, actually, but yes.
It was intense.
I was so overwhelmed.
Well, there we go. Games that we have been playing. Not that many. We've all been busy people, but there's a lot of games that we've been looking at, and we're going to get into that in our next section, so stick around. And hello, and we are back again with section number 2, which is games that are on our radar. Now, we're going to approach this a little bit differently this time, because there are a lot of games on everyone's radar.
Oh, yes.
You might have been hidden under a rock, and you might not have noticed that Summer Games Fest happened, Day of the Devs happened, Wholesome Games happened, Devolver thing happened. Like there's so many.
Xbox Fan Fest.
And that happened as well. So there was a lot going on, and that means there are a lot of games to talk about. So for this reason, we're not going to be talking about the ones that are coming out in the next month. We're going to be talking about games that are coming out maybe in the next month, maybe in the next 2 years. It just depends on what we're actually discussing. They all featured in showcases recently. I am going to be covering Day of the Devs. Melika is going to be covering Xbox, and JT is going to do a best of the rest.
Yeah.
So Melika, do you want to jump in with the Xbox stuff?
Sure. Before I do the Xbox stuff, though, I'll do the one that's not Xbox, but I just couldn't resist talking about, which is Flutter Away. So that was announced during the Wholesome Direct. And have you guys ever played Beasts of Maravilla Island?
I have not.
Okay, so basically, the kind of what they both are. You're kind of like exploring through like a jungle. Now, at Beast of Maravilla Island, it was a fantasy place, whereas this one seems to be based more in real life. But basically, you're sort of exploring through this like nature thing, and you've got a camera and a journal to fill, and you take pictures of the different wildlife, and it's just like a really sort of cute way of still collecting things, because you guys know I love collecting things. But instead of just picking them up from the wild, instead you're like using the camera to capture images of them, and I actually really enjoy that kind of thing in a game. I think it adds a bit of a different take on the sort of usual collecting thing. And I find those games just like so relaxing. Like, I'm assuming Flutter Away will also have similar gameplay elements where it is more interactive and you can choose where to go, what to jump over, what to duck under, which is what Beasts of Maravilla Island had. But yeah, that was coming out in August. I can't remember the exact date, and I believe it's going to be on Switch and PC, but it might just be PC. I'll have to double check. But yeah, it looked absolutely fantastic, and I'm hoping I'll get a chance to play it if it is on Switch, because that one looked really good. And then with Xbox, I was shocked. Usually they do their Idea Xbox showcase. They didn't do that this year. So it was primarily their big games like Starfield and Fable and Avowed, which, don't get me wrong, I am super excited about, but they're not indie. So I will restrain myself from talking about those.
I do want to just mention, why is Richard Ayoade in Fable?
Why not? Why not? Okay.
That's all I wanted to ask. I just don't understand it.
It's perfect. He's perfect for it. It'll be great. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed the Xbox showcase. It was just a shame there was such a lack of indie stuff, but there was some indie stuff. So we had one I'm very excited for is 33 Immortals, which is by Thunder Lotus Games, who makes Spiritfarer, one of my favorite games, and it looks to be very similar to Hades, one of my other favorite games. So basically it's Hades made by one of my favorite developers, so I am super excited for it. So the premise of 33 Immortals is that it's like a co-op with you and 32 other players trying to take down the hordes of enemies. So like at first I was watching, I was like, is this gonna be like a battle royale? But no, it is literally 33 player co-op of roguelike action. It looks intense. It is so different to Spiritfarer, but given what a fantastic job they did with the game, I have every faith that they will pull something completely amazing out of the bag with this one, and I honestly cannot wait to play it.
I heard about this one, and I immediately was like, I don't know if I'll like that, but I trust in the studio because I think they're very good, and I know that they can do that more serious tone because they've done Sundered and they've done Jotun, and they've done stuff like that before. The whole 33 player co-op was just like, it's gonna be like a WoW raid.
Insane, but I don't know. I think based on the trailer, it looks like it is gonna work. Like, it looked really cool, and I honestly cannot wait to play it, because I 90% of the time I prefer turn-based combat, but Hades, I really genuinely enjoyed the real-time combat. Hades rewarded you for button spamming, which is what I played, so I like that. So assuming that 33 Immortals does the same, like just whack the buttons over and over again, that'll work well for me. So yeah, I'm really excited for 33 Immortals. Absolutely cannot wait to get more information and eventually play that one. And then there's also I don't know exactly how to pronounce it. I'm assuming it's just Jusant. So this is by the developers of Life is Strange. Did you guys ever play Life is Strange?
I've seen a lot of it. It seems very artsy.
Yeah, I played the first Life is Strange and didn't play the others. But anyway, Jusant, it kind of, again, it's one of those ones where the trailer didn't give too much information, but you seem to be this explorer, like sort of like climbing through mountains and stuff, and it's like an adorable little cute little creature coming with you. And from what I can tell from looking at it online, it looks like it's going to be kind of quite puzzle based, but also like the adventure side of things. So you're basically climbing up and you've got this puzzles to solve, you've got the creature to be adorable with. I don't know much about it, but from what I've seen it, I like the art style. I like climbing things. So I'm hoping there'll be platforming elements, which I think it's quite a possibility based on what we've seen. So that should be pretty good. I'm looking forward to that. We've also got Towerborn, which is an action adventure game. So this one, you kind of, again, I feel like trailers these days don't actually tell you that much about what the game is. Like, they just show random clips of cool stuff happening, which is like great. But it's like, but what is it? So I feel limited in what I can talk about. But basically, Towerborn, there's a tower, and you really like it apparently because you're protecting it with your life. So you're just gonna be fighting off the enemies. It's an action adventure game though, so it looks, because even though the trailer is pretty much exclusively combat, there's got to be some other elements inside there that just weren't shown. So I'm interested to see what the sort of more adventure side of the active adventure side is, because I like the sort of jumping over things and exploring. That's what I get a kick out of, and I'm hoping there'll be collectibles. But what I do know there will be is customization options, which is like the other thing I adore in games. So you can change your look, your weapon loadout, your skins, all of that. So I'm very much excited to see all the customization options for that. But it does look like it's going to be one where you can either play single player or co-op, which is always good. I don't think they're going to have a versus mode for player versus player, but why would you really? So yeah, hopefully it should be pretty cool. And this is sad. There was so little for Xbox. Like, there were a couple of games revealed for Xbox, but some of them looked rubbish. I'm not even going to bother mentioning them. So genuinely, those were the only Xbox indies announced during the showcase that are on my radar. The rest are either not indie or not Xbox. So I will mention instead one game that's coming out recently. With like, we'll do our usual thing for the last one, and that is the Bookwalker Thief of Tales. Have either of you guys heard of that one?
I have not.
Nope.
Okay, it looks pretty decent. So this was kind of like a top-down narrative adventure, and you just like solve puzzles and you go exploring around, and there's turn-based combat. I like the look of the art, because it's not like artsy, but it looks like it's gonna be very immersive. So there's I love journals in games. It's one thing I really adore. There's something about just opening a big book and just like flipping through the pages that just like makes me feel completely immersed in a game. So it looks like it's gonna have that kind of thing. I'm also getting like mystery vibes from it, so I don't know exactly what to expect, but it's coming to Game Pass and just coming out on the 22nd of June, so a couple of days now, and I can't wait. Looks like it should be really good.
I'm looking at this now. It reminds me of Disco Elysium, just with some of the surrealist art style and the isometric point of view, and that just tickles my brain in a good way.
Yeah, you like your Disco Elysium.
Yes.
How could you not? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
I've never played it.
It's very dense. You can only play it in like hour bursts. The rhetoric in that game alone, like I don't know who it's for. It's like you have to have like PhDs in 5 different things just to kind of have a conversation with some of the people. Like speaking to like you won't know, but speaking to Measurehead is just like
it's just so tense.
Yeah, that's a cool game. But I was going to jump back to just some, because I've heard a little bit about that one.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm not excited about that is just because of the reputation of the studio. Because their portfolio just doesn't fill me with hope about that one. Like, as far as I remember, they've done things like they've done all of the Life is Strange as far as I'm aware, and they've been a very mixed bag in and of themselves. The first one was very good, Life is Strange.
That's the thing, I've only played the first one, so I haven't played the others.
The second one was episodic, I believe, and it wasn't very good. The third one, True Colors, I think it was, again, okay.
Oh, no, I played the second one, actually, come to think of it. I think I played all the first, and then about half of the second, I think. And then it got taken off of Game Pass.
I'm not a big fan. They've also done things like Telling Lies, which is that...
I loved Telling Lies! Telling Lies, I put so many hours into it. It was so interesting, because if for audience who haven't played that one, basically that one you watch real life they filmed like a bunch of like short videos of like real life people, and you're like on this guy's computer, and you have to like search keywords to find more videos, and when you listen to the videos you can find more keywords that you can search, because each video's got like subtitles, so you can then use those subtitles to search for things, and you've got to try and find out the full story. There's like sort of 3 completely different stories happening like simultaneously. It was fantastic. It was like I was like snooping on this dude's life. I was so invested in the ending. I won't give it away, but I was not expecting it to go the way it did. And depending on whose videos you viewed more of, you get a different ending. I got all the achievements for Telling Lies. I really enjoyed it. Hours and hours in it.
I just think when I hear like FMV, I just check out immediately. It's just...
I know, I like the FMV. me and my husband like playing those games together, because then we can like, because there's very few, because we sometimes play co-op games, but what we like is those games that are technically single player, but also would work to make choices together. Like Yes, Your Grace. I don't know if you played that one as well. Oh, yes, that's another one actually that's coming out. That was announced to come out. Yes, Your Grace, I'm very excited for as well. They're getting a new one of that. So that one, you kind of you play as a king, and you've got to like make choices that will affect how things turn out in your kingdom and for yourself. And it's one of those games where there's not a good choice. It's like you're going to screw something up either way.
Mhm.
It's about balancing how much you screw up in which directions. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Yes, Your Grace. I think it's called Snowfall, the new one.
Mm.
But yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like, yes, a new Yes, Your Grace. I feel like I must be one of like a very tiny proportion of people who are actively excited about it, because it was a very small game that flew under most people's radars. But I really enjoyed it. It was really fun.
I like the look of it. I mean, it reminds me of Reigns from a while ago, like a good while ago. I think 2015 it was Reigns, and it's kind of the same thing. You're the king and you make choices, and
Oh yeah,
they eventually lead.
it's very much Reigns, but expanded, and like there's more of your characters have more characterization and stuff.
Yeah.
But like you don't die. You can die, and I actually
You can die.
I did a first playthrough 2 voice actors, and they were very fun to play with. And I had 2 choices. First, I executed a guy for deserting. I was like, "What are you trying to do?" And then I went to the tar gates. I saw, and then I surrendered because it's like, "Oh,
I did
well,
the exact same
okay." I was my friend's like, "JT, what are you doing?"
Yeah, it became the most obvious option. But yeah, it's like, how dare you run away from the battlefield? Everyone, run away from the battlefield! Oh man.
I like that.
There was also one I felt really bad, where I promised my daughter I wouldn't marry her off, but then we needed the money, so we just married her off.
It does a great job of making you feel bad.
It's one of those ones where you have to make some really tough choices and feel bad about it.
Well, speaking of tough choices, there were hundreds and hundreds of games announced. JT, what's your best of the rest?
Oh, there's so many. Well, I guess starting with some Devolver Digital. I saw Wizard with a Gun that basically looked like Cult of the Lamb, but more with westerny gun focused genre or like play style, and it looked really cute. I played through some of the demo that was available now, and I liked it. It seemed like they dealt with a lot of the grindy bits that made Cult of the Lamb feel kind of tedious. So, like, it's easier to get more stuff. You don't have to work as hard to grind, and you can make more interesting things. And even had some elements like you could scan buildings and place them down for yourself. They kind of remind you of like the scanner thing in Subnautica. So I was like, oh, that was a nice little throwback. And I like playing through that, but I only played through the demo, so I don't know too much. But I really like that same kind of art style that Cult of the Lamb have, and I like that it's emulating that. And it does feel like it's very kind of copied paste in terms of how you're playing the game, but they made it very more accessible or just less tedious, as I was saying. So,
are they essentially just trying to go for a Cult of the Lamb too without actually doing that?
Yes, pretty much that. There's no follower mechanics like as it had in the other game, but yeah, it really does feel just like that. So, I can't complain. I like Cult of the Lamb enough, and taking out the parts of it that I didn't like so much, I think that works for me. I think like having followers is interesting because you could assign, like stories to them, but then they would die and like their stories would die with them. So it was like it's hard to get attached to people.
I don't feel like Cult of the Lamb would have done as well if it wasn't as cute as it was.
Right.
So.
Yeah. But that was fun to play through as a demo, and like that's currently available. And I just love those kind of animations that accompany those games. So that was very cute. And there's this game, I hope you guys have seen it. It's called Baby Steps. It's I'm sure
it sounds familiar. I'm gonna jog my memory with it.
It's amazing. It's very much it's inspired and made by like the guy who made Getting Over It, Bennett Foddy.
Oh,
and
God, yeah.
Instead of like in Getting Over It, you played as a guy in a cauldron pot, and you're trying to use your hammer to get up a mountain, and it was very frustrating because you kept getting knocked back to the start. In this game, you play as a 35-year-old man-child that's just thrust into the wilderness and is forced to navigate this terrain. He just has trouble walking and staying upright and sliding down, and it's going to be available in 2024, so it'll be a bit later. But I saw it, I got so excited because it had like this amazing comedic atmosphere that it was trying to emulate, and it looks like it'll be very hard, and I'll probably get really frustrated with it. But
Q-Wop flashbacks.
Yes, it is very much that. It's like that, but 3D.
I feel like I heard somewhere, and I can't remember if it was a credible source or not, but I think the people that made Co-op are also like kind of working on it.
Yeah,
that would not surprise me.
Oh, that's so great. Just nice throwback. I just saw it was Bennett Foddy and the people that made Ape Out. So, yeah, no, I'm really excited to see that. It seems like that'll just be a game that like giggle to and get really mad at. It's like, why can't you
What I would say,
walk?
it's definitely like a streamer friendly game that will be big for 2 weeks and then disappear.
Yes, it seems like
getting
it'll.
over it.
But for those 2 weeks, it'll be fun.
Oh, right. But yeah, it'll be a great game to suffer with people together when that comes out. And yeah, besides that, there was a game that it's called Frog Song. This was some more
That one
wholesome
looks
games.
so good.
Yeah, it
I'm
looks
so excited
adorable.
for Frog Song.
Yeah, and I know it was kind of. I saw Frog Song, like Silk Song, so it looked kind of Hollow Knight-y, but it was more leading into the more narrative aspects of it. It looks really adorable, and it's like, oh, just everyone's frogs, and like this person's going on an adventure to like get more confidence in themselves. I didn't follow the narrative too much because I didn't want to spoil it for myself.
It
I'll
was
probably
hard
play
to.
it.
The Wholesome Direct was so intense.
It was amazing.
It was like 80 games in the space of an hour. It was like hard to process what was happening before there was a new one on the screen. So like there were loads in there that looked great. I could not separate them for you because it was just like, help.
Was that one that was it shadow dropped or was it out before the?
No, it's out now. I think it was shadow dropped. Yeah.
It might have been shadow dropped from what I remember, but that's cool.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to give it a playthrough. I think it'll be cute. I'll just see, like, I'll play a few hours. Like, oh, this is worth my time. I think it will be because I'm a sucker for wholesome stories.
Oh, it's on Switch as well. I thought it was PC only.
Oh,
We'll have to get that a play then.
Yeah. Yeah, so enjoyed that. And there was one I really liked because it had a very interesting retro art style, and the mechanics looked really cute. It's called Everdeep Aurora. And it's very much the version of Stray like I would want to play, where you play as a cat person thing in a post-apocalypse, and you're digging down to the bowels of the earth to find your family. And it's yeah, I don't know if either of you played Dome Keeper, but it has like some of those mechanics of like drilling down into the dirt and the rock. And I saw it, I was like, oh, I like that. Another game that was like that, and it looks very cute. And it's hard to describe what else I like beyond like the art style and stuff. It just looked like that's a game.
I hate the art style. I
Oh.
googled it. I looked and I was like, this is.
It's very retro.
It's the retro sci-fi though. I like retro. There's a specific retro sci-fi look that I absolutely hate, and it's this. This is the vibe. This is my least favorite gaming art style. I hate stuff like this.
Oh, it can be very harsh.
It's why I avoid a lot of sci-fi games that are indie ones, because they nearly always go for this exact style. Like whichever style you're thinking of, listen to the podcast. If you think retro sci-fi, it's that one. It's I can't be dealing with it.
Yeah, it very much looks like one of
color
those
palette as well.
text adventure based like books, that kind of vibe.
Yeah, I'm just a sucker for those kind of
it.
things. I know it's definitely not everyone's cup of tea, but it's certainly
Well, I think that's nice though. I think it's fun how we've got like completely different preferences.
Yeah. Oh, makes it more interesting. But yeah, no, I'm super excited for that. That's probably gonna devour my time for a long while. And those were the ones I was most excited for, but there was one, I mean, there's a lot of them, they're adorable. There was one that's like, I am a caterpillar, that looked, you just play as a caterpillar going around collecting food stuff, and I thought like, oh, Melika will probably like
I saw that one.
And there's one called a Kibu, where you play as a fox person and you make
that was by the maker of Omno.
Right.
I was very excited because that one was one of the few they sort of had a quick clip of during the introduction to the Wholesome Direct, and I was like, whatever game that is, I can't wait to see it. And it ended up being by the creator of Omno rather, and I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, I love the feel of it. Of just like you venture out into the world and you can pick a spot to start a like a kind of hotel place. I'm forgetting.
I think it's like a monastery. I think it's
monastery,
like a monk.
right?
Yeah.
And it looked very sweet and wholesome and like a nice, more relaxing game.
Yeah.
And I would have liked it more, but there were just so many other farming sims that were in the Wholesome Direct too.
From what I can tell, it's not really a farming sim. Like there's farming sim elements, but from what I can tell from what the developer's been saying, it's more about sort of like mindfulness and like creating your own space and stuff.
Yeah, so it seemed like it was a little bit more light on some of those, like the farming sim aspects. I was like, oh, that's nice. I saw at some of those elements. I was like, oh, less of that.
I completely get that. I was on a news beat for Wholesome Direct, and every single game it seemed like was a farming sim. I was just like, I'm not going to cover this. Give me something else.
So relevant to our first podcast episode about how there are too many farming games in the indie sphere. It was like, the proof is in the pudding, people. It's like, oh look, another farming game.
it really took me back. I was like, oh, we were right. Like we called this.
For sure we did.
Oh, but yeah, there were so many other good ones, and there were so many. There's so many I want to talk about, but if I talk about them more, I feel like I'd be here for a few more hours.
If you want to know what happened at Wholesome Direct, what you do is you go onto YouTube, you put it on 0.5 speed, and you watch.
Oh,
Oh, but yeah,
No,
that
I have a bit of an
addressed my-
easier job. All I have to do is do Day of the Devs, which was a much more well-paced showcase.
yes,
I think there was maybe about
that was nice and slow.
there was about 10 to 12 things on there. They all got their time. I really appreciate that showcase because they give the developers the time to really like just sit down and talk about their game.
That one's very much more about the sort of like process of developing the games as well as just showing them. Also, there is one specific game that I hated, and if you bring it up, I'm gonna just rail on it. So be warned.
Fair enough. I don't think I will because I feel like these are all kind of more towards your vibe, but we'll see. And just before we start, I've been meaning to look at this, but just if anyone doesn't know, Double Fine Productions, who run Day of the Devs, they done like a behind the scenes kind of like all access documentary of them developing Psychonauts 2. It looks really good. You should maybe have a look at that
documentary. I have heard of it.
Yeah, it's very much in the same vein as like in the football world, they're doing like the All or Nothing series where they go behind the scenes and go in the dressing rooms. It's very much the same sort of vibe, but gaming, so better.
Cool.
But yeah, we'll jump into Day of the Devs. The first one I'm going to mention is the first one that came up, and that is Beastie Ball.
Oh,
Beastie
I saw
Ball.
that.
It looks really cool. It's kind of in the same vein as, I suppose, cassette based in a way, but it's
I don't know. It's no cassette based, Cal.
Okay.
I did see the trailer for that, and I thought, like, wait, is this the cassette beast game that Melika was talking about? And I said Beastie Ball. I was like, oh, it's volleyball.
In the art style, it's very similar in a lot of ways, but the difference is it's themed around volleyball. So Beastie Ball is essentially you team up in pairs on your team, and it's basically like Pokemon, but it's very much based on doubles combat rather than singular. And you have your pairings have special abilities based on how you pair them up, how they work together. It's very much team dynamics. It's very cool in that regard. It's also made by the guys that made Chicory, A Colorful Tale.
I need to play Chicory. It's been added to Game Pass, but I've got so many games.
It's so
I'm not playing because of cassette. I've got so much to play, but I don't want to play anything else. I've caught them all. I've done what needs to be done, but I'm still out there shiny hunting.
You need to break away. You need to try.
I do.
But yeah, Beastie Ball was the first one that came out. It looks really cool. There's not a lot.
Awesome.
There's not a lot more you can really say outside of the fact that it's very Pokemon themed, kind of the same vibe as cassette based. Going to be more doubles combat, but outside of that, we don't know an awful lot more about it. But
I'm really looking forward to when we get more details on that.
Yeah, there's probably going to be a rich story to it because Chicory was very much in that same vein. So we'll get a little bit more as time goes along. Then there was one that was very much in my wheelhouse more than anybody else. A game called Hellscape.
I heard of that one.
It looks very cool. So it's a roguelike, which immediately puts me on the back foot because I whenever I hear roguelike, I go, okay, all right. But it's made by the people, well, not the people, but one person that was on the head team for Tony Hawk's Underground. And what it is, it's a skateboarding game with that arcade feel like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater.
Yes.
But it's set in hell, basically, or a hellish demon-filled city. And you have to combat against these demons. Like it's combat based, but your combat's based on combos and how well you skip and all that sort of thing.
That's the one I messaged you about. I was like, how do you see this? This is perfect for you, girl.
It's very cool. It's very much in my wheelhouse now. I'm more into the realistic skating games these days, but I still have a lot of time for the old Tony Hawk's ways as well. And I feel like that one's going to be really cool. I like the fact that they've married those two things together to the point where I looked at a roguelike and I went, that's actually interesting. So there was that one. I really liked it. I like the idea. The third one I wrote down is Viewfinder, but we already talked about that one. Just to kind of rehash a little bit, the central focus of Viewfinder is the puzzles are based on your point of view. You have a camera. You can take pictures of the landscape, and then you can hold up your pictures, your like little Polaroid pictures of the landscape, and then you can fix them into place, and now they become the world as you see it. So It's very interesting. It's a cool concept. It's going to need a lot more than that to become a groundbreaking game, but we will see as time goes on.
I feel like the coding must be so difficult for something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to the fractal thing I was talking about earlier. It's very hard to describe without actually going and seeing for yourself what fractal gaming is, because there's a lot of FPSs that have done it before, where you have like an endless loop of map where you can run to the edge and then it just starts the next map again and repeats and repeats and repeats. You just need to see it in action to understand it, but it's one of those. The fourth one I have written down is Ete, which looks
I saw that one. Looks, I'm really excited for that one.
Yeah, that's like 3D chicory pretty much, right?
Very, very similar. I feel like
at first I was hesitant, but then when I found out there were like quests and stuff and there was like more RPG elements, I was there for it.
Now, I can't remember, but it seems like a game that has Annapurna written all over it, and I can't remember. And I'd be very surprised if they didn't take that one, because it's so in their wheelhouse, it's unreal.
Oh wait, sorry, I think I was thinking of a game called E.T., which is slightly pronounced different. So I was like, oh wait, that's different.
Like the alien.
Yes.
Trying to find it. It's by Impossible.
Okay. It just seems so Annapurna to me, in the sense that it's going to be very artistic, very sound-based, very story-based, and you can already tell no gameplay whatsoever.
Oh.
But in a nice way, because the gameplay has a core mechanic to it where it's a colorless world and you have to create color through painting this like watercolor world to progress from A to B. As far as I can tell, that's what the game is. And I imagine it's just going to be exposition as you go in a walking simulator format, which, as we discussed in the last episode, not everyone is for, but I'm very for that sort of thing. and Melika's going to like it because there's shapes and colors, so she'll get on board.
Oh, well, I'm so there for it.
And then the last one, I was kind of tossing up which one to look into, but the one that jumped out to me is Hyper Light Breaker. It looks really, really cool. So it's a follow-up from Hyper Light Drifter, which was like a 2D top-down hack and slash game, and they've moved into they've moved into a 3D engine, which I think is a big swing, but it looks like it could well pay off. It's given me Omno, it's given me Genshin Impact, it's given me Fury. Like there's a lot to it, so I think it's still going to have that kind of hack and slash roguelike feel to it, but it's very stylistic. It's very fast paced. It looks like the combat's going to be super difficult, so I'm in for those sort of things. And like it comes from good stock, because Hyper Light Drifter was fantastic as well.
Like, so you mean the Genshin Impact's combat? Or I know you also meant like world exploration and stuff.
So it kind of looks a little bit like world exploration as well. I'm not sure, based on the format, if it's going to be like open world, do whatever you want, or if you're going to be on a very linear kind of pathway. But just in terms of the map makeup of what I've seen, I was like, it's very Genshin-y. But I don't know. That maybe just me projecting, because I played like 200 hours of that game.
Well, there will be a lot of
There's
people
one game that no one's mentioned, and I feel like it needs to be mentioned, and that's Sticky Business. Did you guys see the trailer for that one? So that's the one where basically you run your own sticker store, and you get to design your stickers and then price them and then sell them. It looks fantastic. I can live my Etsy dreams without having to invest real money. I can't wait.
Oh, I have seen this.
I was offered to review that one, and I decided no, I don't want to do that. it just doesn't.
You were offered? Does that mean it's like they've got a playable version of it? I thought it wasn't out yet.
Oh, there's a demo.
There's a demo?
Yes.
So it's very much on the way.
Is it on Switch?
I can't remember.
If it's on Switch, I'm definitely playing that.
I vaguely remember when it was offering codes that it might have just been PC. I can't remember.
I think that must be it, because otherwise I would have been all over it, because it looks amazing. I hope it comes on Switch. It looks so good.
Yeah, I didn't feel like it had enough substance to kind of hold my attention.
Did you not see the part where you can make the dinosaurs be in love, Cal, in a sticker with a rainbow over them? Come on, Cal.
At the danger of repeating myself, listen back to yourself when we go.
You can get the dinosaur sticker, flip the dinosaur sticker, make them kiss, and then put a rainbow over them.
Yeah, you can do that, yeah.
Why would you not want to?
I just want to know
how much time you got.
What's the point of that? It looks so cute and adorable. It's like, okay, but What's
The
the
point is
end
to have your
game?
own sticker store, and you can like come up with lots of sticker designs and make a sticker sheet, JT. How is this not jumping out to you as the best gameplay you've ever heard
It
of?
just doesn't sound like a game to me.
No.
It's
I suppose
like,
there's like types of games, but
if I could make money doing that for a living, I would do that. It seems so fun.
Okay.
I wish I was good at art so I could make my own stickers, like legit. That is like my dream job. Apart from writing for this, of course. But that's
Obviously,
fine. I'm very lucky. I've already got a kind of a dream job
yeah.
that is real.
Yeah. But I mean, always aspire for the stickers. One more before we cut off, because I just remembered. I was like, I don't understand why Melika hasn't actually brought this up, but it's maybe because it was shadow dropped and it's not on the horizon. Why have you not talked about Shumi?
You mean Smushy Come Home? And it is exactly what you said. Technically, it's not on the horizon because it was shadow dropped, but it does look amazing. And when I get the time, I'm going to try and reach out to the publishers, see if I can get a code to review it, because it looks so fun.
A platforming mushroom? Like, what's more Melika than that?
It is, but it's not on Xbox. And you said I was on Xbox duty, and I tried to be good and stick to that. And yeah, it's like I said, it's not technically on the horizon. It's what I plan to do with Smushy is play it and then talk about it in games I done played. So,
well, there you go. There's a peek behind the curtain, everybody.
But yeah, Smushy Come Home looks so cute. Little platforming mushroom man. Can't wait.
Yeah, that's all we've got on the horizon. There were a lot of bigger games we could discuss, but that's not what we do here.
That's not what we're about.
But yeah, apart from minor Richard Aowati mention, that's all you're getting. That's it. But yeah, that was Games on the Horizon. We will be back in just a moment, and we will be doing our big discussion with a little surprise.
Ooh.
Hey guys, and we are in for our final section, which is our big discussion. But you may have noticed something. You may have noticed that there's an extra tile on the screen if you watch the podcast, and that is because we have a special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself? It is Monica. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Monica. Do you want to tell everyone about yourself before we get into this heated debate?
I'm the social media influencer of the team, actually. I mostly just like write for indie game culture and a few other websites, and I just enjoy most of the stuff back there.
Visually, it's help.
Yeah, but for those of you just listening to the podcast, Monica has like the most amazing collection of like plushies and figurines and all sorts of awesome gaming merch.
Yeah. I have the 3-foot tall Lucario plushie back there. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. It feels like it's part of the podcast.
Yeah. That's the fifth member.
The fifth member of the podcast. Awesome, guys. Well, we are going to get into it. We're going to be discussing a big one today. Monica has brought it along for us, and it is Are Indies the Last Bastion of Platforming? We're going to be talking about platform games, whether we are talking about traditional platformers or platform games with platform-esque kind of traits. I don't know. We're probably going to have different viewpoints. We're all going to come from different angles. I'm quite happy to kick it off because I feel like I'm going to have the most polarizing view, unless someone feels differently about that. I'm going to take that as a
yes, it's polarizing.
I don't know if mine's polarizing. I feel like mine's what you'd expect from the person who brought it up.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll jump in and then you can all argue with me because that's
go
what
for it.
goes.
Yeah, I love arguing with you.
I know you do. So I am going to come from a standpoint that from the traditional mascot platformer side of things, I feel like indie games are doing very little for that particular aspect of.
We're finally on the same page.
Oh, look at us on the same page. Yeah, I feel like they're not doing an awful lot for the mascot platformer side of things, just because the AAA gaming scene is probably the only thing keeping the mascot platformer side alive. You've got things like, in recent memory, things like Astro's Playroom, which was fantastic. You had things like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and there hasn't been a lot to speak
Crash
of.
4, it's about time.
Yeah, well, the Insane trilogy as well. I was going to get on to the fact that there's a lot of remasters that have been very good as well, such as like Spyro Reignited, the Insane trilogy, About Time, and then I also really liked Klonoa Fantasy Revelry as well. I think that was very good, even though it was just a shot-for-shot remake, but it was very well done.
I never played Klonoa, but About Time's not a remaster; it's a new game.
Yeah, that one is a new game. The rest of them are remasters. But yeah,
I would have you disparage About Time.
I'm on it here. I'm actually giving AAA games a bit of credit. That's not what I do.
That is unlike you, to be fair.
But yeah, to kind of put it in context with the indie games that are trying to do that, there have been a lot of games that just haven't done it well consistently. So things like Ukulele, it's okay. I didn't really like it. It's okay. It's not pushing the genre forward. Clive and Wrench, which I've been playing recently, same thing. It's just doing the things that have been happening for 20 years now. What other ones? Cow the Kangaroo.
KO. Can't ignore KO.
Definitely can't ignore that one.
Some history in this podcast.
Yeah, we don't like Cow here. Apart from
you don't like. I thought I joined the don't like side. I still like it as a premise. I just don't like the most recent DLC.
Yeah, well, no. In the last episode, you said no. I've had enough. I can't defend it anymore.
You did say that, Melika.
I said I like the premise still. They just need to fix everything that's broken with it, which I think kind of brings into the fact as to why indie games have an issue with because KO is a great premise. It just needs a bigger team to refine it more. Like it's not like there's nothing there. It's got so much potential. It just needs to be done better. I just think it lacks the budget, which I think is why. I think indie games are very high on the 2D platformer side of it. When it comes to 3D platformers that require more effort and like more essentially time into the programming thing, I think that is why indie games do feel short. It's because they just don't have the budget or the team size to do like, what Crash or Spyro or those other big name AAA like platformers can do because they just can't afford it or don't have the time or don't have the people. And I think it is a shame because I think a lot of the time there's a lot more passion in indie games because I think it like with AAA like developers, they've got so many games on the go, whereas most indie game studios will focus on one game at a time and put all their effort, all their heart into it. And I think that does show through in the games. But I think the issue comes in where they get too ambitious or where they're like medium ambitious, but they just can't execute it properly. So I think that is the huge issue with mascot platforms, which happens to be my favorite type of platforming. However, there is one company I'd like to mention in regards to this, and that's Playful Studios. Super Lucky's Tale, trash. New Super Lucky's Tale, one of my favorite games because they took everything that was broken with the original version and just improved it. They put that time in to make, because when I played Super Lucky's Tale, I was gutted because it had so much potential. There was so much fun in it, but it's just pretty much unplayable because of the controls of the way it was working. And they decided, you know what? Instead of just leaving the game as it is, we're going to take our game that has so much good and we're going to fix everything that's wrong and put out a better version of it. And New Super Lucky Star is genuinely one of my favorite games. I absolutely loved it. And this is from an indie developer. And then you compare that to Balan Wonderworld, which looked, based on the trailer, like it was going to be amazing. That had AAA. That should have been such a better game than it was. And it just came into it. It was like, it didn't even feel like it was finished developed. The levels were empty. It didn't play properly. It was so poor when it should have been. But by that point, Square Enix were on to their next project. They didn't care. Whereas I think that is one of the things where because they can afford one flop, it doesn't matter to them. And indies, they care, essentially. I find a lot more.
And I remember years ago, you were coming to me and saying, "Cal, can I please review Balan Wonderworld?" Please,
I know.
please.
And I was like, on our old one we used to work for, and I was so excited for it, and I couldn't believe it. We said, "Yes, you got a code." I was like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get to play it!" And I was like, well, "What the hell is this?"
Yuji Naka's not happy. We're just getting good Sonic games now.
Very true. Very true.
Melika, did you have any inclination about like Balan Wonderworld being like maybe not up to your standards or what you think it'd be about? Or
it's not my standards, it's any sane gamer's standards. It's the issue. It was not fully developed. Mm-hmm. Like it was just so many empty levels. Like it was a good premise. Balan Wonderworld should have been so much better than it was, but the controls were super janky, the levels were empty, that they didn't bother to put in level boundaries, so you could go off anywhere and then all of a sudden you're just gonna fall off the edge. And it's like, why are you not making clear? Like, it was so ridiculous, and like it was so easy to go out of bounds and then not be able to get back in bounds. It was very frustrating.
It's one of those games that was shortlisted for worst games ever. Very Gollum-esque in that way.
Like that's the thing. Like it was such lazy developing. There is no way they put that game out not knowing it was just utter trash. Like it isn't just like a few things they might have missed here and there. It is, oh god, we got a deadline, quick, put something out. And I just wish they'd have taken the time to make something better. Which is why I can appreciate that Playful Studios did exactly that. They were like, okay, we've got Super Lucky's Tale, but let's make it better. Let's make it playable. And New Super Lucky's Tale ended up being fantastic.
Well, that is very much the other side of my coin, where I was going to say that like the indie games and the platformers that come out in that sphere, like I would say there are some 3D platformers as well as 2D platformers that they don't do the mascot thing very well. They don't do the traditional side very well, but they do these new modern age platformers very well. Like things like Celeste, phenomenal. Things like,
I'm going to say something very controversial now. I could not get into Celeste. I tried, and I was like, this is just difficult for the sake of being difficult. I knew you were going to fight me on this, Monica. But yeah, like I tried to like it, but I was like, I have very little patience for 2D platformers like that. I need more collecting things, and I know you can collect like strawberries and stuff, but like I needed more. I just found, I was like, this is so difficult, and for what? Because I feel like I have a very low patience for that as well, because 2D platformers are one of the most oversaturated things in the indie market because they're pretty much the easiest thing to code. So it's just, you get a lot of very small time indie developers just putting something out and making it difficult for the sake of being difficult. And I don't think that is the case with Celeste. I can appreciate that they've got a deeper story, there is more going on, but I just did not have the patience for it. I just played too many 2D
I don't necessarily agree with that, because I don't think there's a lot of 2D platformers that come out, or at least
not on the big ones. You get a lot of like just flooding the Steam market with like
shovelware.
Not exactly shovelware, but basically like one guy has decided he wants to be a developer, and he spends, I don't know, a few months a year making a game, and he puts it out, and it's just average. You get a lot of that, and because my site's pretty small, I get offered a lot of those kind of games to review. So I think that's why I have very little patience for 2D platformers a lot of the time.
If you would have said 2D Metroidvanias, I would have agreed with you, because I think that's the distinction for me. I think there's a lot more of those.
I will say, in like my short experience game developing, literally every tutorial is like how to make a 2D platformer for your first game, because that's just the box standard genre.
Exactly. Like when I started developing, it was like exactly the same. 2D platforms where I started, because it's just easiest.
I could talk for like 2 hours about how much I love Celeste, but it's like, I just don't think Nintendo or really any other studio is ever going to make something as like tightly controlling and focused as Celeste is, because it's just like they worked for years on just the core mechanics of that game, and even though there's only like 3 things you can do, you can combine those 3 things in like a million different ways to have like some of the coolest movement and really just some of the most fun, difficult gameplay in a video game that I've played. So personally, I think Celeste is just kind of the peak of platformers for me personally, but that's also because it has insanely good story and music, and you know, Nintendo's not going to do one of those things.
And because you come from like a speedrunning background as well, like talk a little bit about how good Celeste is as a speedrunner as well, because they've super tightly, the mechanics are just perfectly made for that sort of thing.
Because I've not even speedrun Celeste, but Celeste makes me want to speedrun Celeste by just playing it. It's just one of those games that's so satisfying to do things correctly, and like a string of things that make you go really fast. Like even just like casually learning to do, well, what they call wave dashing, but are called hyper dashing in the speedrunning community. You don't worry about that, but it's so satisfying to pull off, and it's just a normal thing they expect you to do in one of the levels, that you just start doing it in the entire rest of the game because it's so fun to go fast. And really the only other game that made me ever feel like that is Mario Odyssey, and like that was 6 years ago.
To kind of keep talking about the indie games that kind of modernize the platforming scene, like the other ones I had written down, and like it's kind of a wild batch because some of them maybe don't belong with others because some of them are much tighter than others. The one that stands out for me, and some people might say it's not a platformer because it's kind of got an FPS sort of vibe to it, but Neon White for me is a platformer. And
I
I think
was
it's
gonna bring that up too.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much expected of you in terms of movement, and you have to make sure you don't fall. So I would call that a platformer.
I actually have quite a lenient approach to what I consider a platformer. Like, as long as there's an active part of the gameplay that involves jumping things with skill. And that's another thing where some platformers I don't consider platformers, because even though you are technically jumping things, there's no skill involved. So I think for me, the necessity of skill, I would much rather give a non-platformer game the opinion of a platformer if there's platforming elements with skill than a platformer game that doesn't have skill. I think you need to have to time your jumps and have to work out exactly like where to be. It shouldn't, if it's too easy, it's not a proper platform.
Then to combat against that, I wrote down Omno, which is
I count that as a platformer.
I would consider something like Spelunky a platformer, but like not a short hike, if you know that game.
I've heard of a short hike and I've never actually played that one.
It's just kind of a chill, like Animal Crossing vibe sort of game where you kind of climb a mountain, but it's not really under any sort of pressure or stress. You just kind of talk to people more than you really do anything skill based. Yeah.
But I actually wrote down Omno on my list of good platformers because puzzle platformers are right up there as one of my favorite genres. So the platforming elements from Omno, great. The puzzle elements, great. All blended. That is another reason why I do think indies have a lot to bring to the platformer genre, and I think indies are much more likely than AAAs to merge genres rather than just commit to just one thing. And I like that you can introduce several elements, because I think platforming actually works best when it is involved as part of something else. I think games that are just, I think that's another reason I didn't like Celeste too much, is because it was continuous difficult platforming, which I do enjoy, but I enjoy in short bursts. So I really like games that combine multiple things, where platforming is a part of it, so I can enjoy the platforming elements, but it's not just that. So whereas AAA, a lot of the platformers would just be a platformer.
Right.
Yeah,
like
I kind of view it as like a platformer is get from A to B, and everything else is like, if it's not that as the main goal, I don't view it as a platformer. Like, so a lot of people would say Hollow Knight's a platformer.
Okay, I was going to bring that up because
I feel like
combat is the main.
I got it written down as well.
Yeah,
I feel like Metroidvanias are just an offshoot of platformers. They're like a subgenre under a bigger platformer genre.
Yeah.
I would point to like the Path of Pain and like the White Palace and Hollow Knight, where it's just pure platforming. There's like maybe 4 sections of combat with some of the like Black Void Knight creatures, but yeah, I feel like I appreciate in Hollow Knight, at that point, you're invested enough in the story or what's going on for them to throw that difficulty at you. And at that point, it's like, okay, I have a reason to do this. And I love Celeste, but I hate approaching that from a Souls standpoint, because a lot of Souls games, it's like, okay, you want to keep throwing yourself at this brick wall until it breaks. And with Celeste, I just kept getting more and more frustrated. My hands would get like slipperier on the controllers, and then I would just like throw my hands down. It's like, no, I need to step away from this. I'm getting way too angry.
The only difference between that and a Souls, like, and I think it makes it a lot more accessible, is whenever you die in Celeste, you just start again like that instantly.
Right. Yeah.
Soulsborne, you lose everything. You work for an hour just to get back where you were.
That's true. Like that, they don't have that frustrating bit. It's more. It's like if I'm keep trying this again, I feel like I'm making zero progress. The pattern recognition isn't clicking for me, then I start to get a little bit more frustrated. And I think you have to have a lot more patience with that. And I just feel like I was kind of bad. It's just the game was saying like, oh, you're not very good at this, aren't you, JT?
Is it bad if I say like the Path of Pain was like my favorite thing in late game Hollow Knight?
No, I think that's
I can understand that. Oh.
I like that
challenge.
Oh,
I just didn't like the combat that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was not prepared for the difficulty of combat in Hollow Knight. So brutal. Like, until that point, I'd never spent more than like half an hour to an hour on a boss. And then I remember facing Hornet the first time, and it took me 1.5 hours. And I was like, this is the most difficult boss I'm ever going to face in my whole life. And then I'm at Hornet 2.0, and it took me 8 hours. It was just insane.
Technical platforming, when it's done well, is the best, but it takes so much development to get it right, because you have to spend so much time on the movement to the point where it is pristine. Like, very few have actually done it well, like Super Meat Boy, Celeste. I can't even think of any others off the top of my head that have done like 2D platforming that precise.
Well, Crash 4 had like throughout the main levels, you could like collect these tapes and then you'd play them, and it would kind of like be these 2D levels where you're like jumping between the boxes. You had to be so precise, like the slightest slip up, and you would like mess up. That part was really fun. Like that allowed me to flex my platforming muscles. Whereas if that was the entire game, I would have rage quit. But I liked having it in short bursts.
I do vaguely remember that, and it was really hard.
They were like proper difficult because it's happened so fast. Like you had to know, like you had to like make split-second decisions and like jump just at the right time and just the right place. It was crazy because you had to collect every box. You couldn't just like find the shortest way across. You had to like double back and double like catch and then dodge all in TNT crates. There was a lot going on.
It's so surprising to think about. Like, I remember in my childhood, if I go play games at a friend's house or just like be in an area where I could play games, and I think it flew me by, but I just remember like Crash Bandicoot and Spyro just being readily available on almost like any station. And now I just think that, like, that kind of genre is starting to, I don't know, disappeared, but it's just like it's less prevalent or less present.
It's just
less
like
visible.
the only really companies that are like making platformers like actively anymore are like Sega and Nintendo, and it's like most of the time it's not things that are super original. It's usually things that are like, hey, what if we took the concept we made 20 years ago and then just added another gimmick to it? Or it's just Breath of the Wild but with Sonic in it that Solar Ash already did a year ago and better. But
the time when platformers come out is whenever a new console comes out, because they can just go back to an old IP they know will work. They'll rely on nostalgia and they'll get sales in the early days, and then you'll never see it again for another 5 years. That's what Ratchet and Clank was. And then they're going to do it again in 5 years. But
I actually feel the sweet spot with platformers, I find a lot of the time, is the mid-sized developers, so not the indies or the AAAs. So, for example, It Takes Two by Hazelight and Psychonauts from Double Fine. Like, I think those middle ones are where you really get that sweet spot, where they've got the budget, they've got the team to make something really big, but they also don't have the super high pressure of the AAAs to be like, get it to a deadline, be really precise, it's all about the money kind of thing. I think you can get like some really powerful story. Like, for example, Psychonauts 2, fantastic story, such clever gameplay, so many different mechanics going on. The platforming elements, I'll be honest, the actual controls weren't amazing. They weren't bad enough to draw me out of the game, but they could have been smoother. But then you have It Takes Two, such masterful combination of like mini games, platforming, story, and I think the fact they were able to balance all of those elements together, whereas an indie would have had to either focus on the story or focus on the mini games or focus on the platforming, they were able to put the budget and time into all of them without having. I just feel like a lot of the time AAAs lack charm, and I think, you know, like I said, Spyro and Crash are like I love them, so they're kind of like an exception. But I find like a lot of AAA platformers outside of the mascot platformers do tend to just, I don't know, they feel too clinical almost like that. Whereas I find there's a lot of charm in the indie and the mid-sized ones.
Yeah. I would say it's very hard to call people that are backed by Devolver and EA like anywhere near double A's. They've got all the money they want.
Well, I feel like Fall Guys existing was a miracle in the first place, but
oh gosh, I didn't
Fall
even
Guys
think
is
about
a pretty
Fall Guys.
good example.
Not nowadays
because
because it's developed by Epic, but at the start.
Well, this is the hang-up that I have with It Takes Two and Fall Guys to an extent as well. They got put in a category whenever they came out in the Game of the Year for Indie Game of the Year, and I was like,
yeah,
you can't put them in there.
Not been an indie.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
It just isn't fair to the small developers. If there's a double A category, throw them in there every step of the way. But
yes,
need the mid-size but not too large or not too indie, you know, kind of category.
Yeah,
it's hard to title, but if they could do it. Yeah, the only indie platformer, like mascot platformer, I would say that has actually pushed the genre on in some regard is Tinykin. That's the only one I've played that does
that. Tinykin, so good.
That was very, very good, and it actually done something distinctly different from what I've seen before.
Such unusual mechanics. It was fantastic. Which I also find it so surprising because, like, the promo stuff for Tinykin looks nothing like the actual game of Tinykin. So I went into it expecting something completely different, and I was very pleasantly surprised. Like, I was already expecting good, and it was good in a totally different way. And like the way it combined all the different mechanics and the platforming, and it was such unique visual storytelling. It was fantastic.
I was expecting strategy Pikmin stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm not for this. I'll try it.
Just the opposite.
Exactly. And there's other ones as well that, because they lack so many other mechanics, I see them as a platformer because it's basically all you do. It's about traversal. Now, this one I liked in spite of its flaws. It had a lot going for it and had a lot going against it. Shia, that I reviewed a little while ago,
I thought you didn't like Cheer.
Yeah.
I didn't like a lot of it, but the one thing I really did like about it is getting around and traversal. It was fun to get around. Like, you can soul jump into bodies of like birds and fly in the sky, and then drop out of the sky and become like an animal. Like, it was very cathartic in that way, and it's very platformery because you can glide, and it's very Breath of the Wildish in a lot of ways too. But it was cool. It's just the rest of it wasn't very cool.
That's kind of like what I was thinking with like Solar Ash, is like it's doing what Sonic Frontiers wanted to do, which is have an open world platformer with like insanely fun movement. Except Sonic Frontiers just didn't really have that much fun movement, and it was like half traditional Sonic levels anyways. So
It's
like,
one of those games I looked at and I was like, the world's completely empty, and they've just thrown these courses into, like, that's from the promotional material. It just looks like they've thrown all of these like obstacle courses into this plain world, and that's it. But it's obviously more than that because it reviewed quite well.
Frontiers or Solar Ash?
Frontiers.
Yeah, it kind of is. It's just like the like little obstacle courses chain together really nicely, so you can like get a flow going, and that feels nice. But like the movement itself is pretty standard. It's just they just dropped like Sonic with like a worse boost than the past games in a Breath of the Wild, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it.
Oh.
And then Solar Ash, you get to roller skate everywhere, and it's really fun.
Oh, also, I wanted to ask before I forgot, but Melika, Planet of Lana, did that have like some like enough platforming elements for you to like think of it that way, or it's just pure
Planet
puzzles?
of Lana is not a platformer. It can call
Okay.
itself a platformer all it likes. This is where that skill element of it comes in. Like, I like Planet of Lana. I stand by that. It's a great game, but it's not a platformer. Just because you technically jump from one thing to the other thing, it is a walking sim that happens to have some platforms in it.
Okay.
I refuse to accept it as a platform. There's no skill involved. No, it ain't no platformer. It's a walking sim with extra steps.
But it takes a lot of skill to jump over that gap, though.
No, it doesn't. That's the thing. Like, it's lucky it's not a platformer either, because the platform mechanics are trash, but it doesn't matter because you don't need any skill. But like, yeah, it's just you jump again. It's done. Let's walk for another 5 minutes, and then there'll be another platform to look at.
What was your quote that you said to us and you were very proud of?
Oh, yeah. I said Planet of Lana is a platform in the same way a cucumber's a fruit. Just because it's technically got seeds in it does not make it a fruit. Just like Planet of Lana technically has platformers in it does not make it a platformer.
There she is, the writer. The last thing I wanted to bring up is just going to a more retro side of indie gaming. I think that one thing that indie games has brought to the platforming scene is a completely different perspective on what a platformer could be, because up until that point there only was mascot platformers up until about 20 when did Braid come out? 2009, 2010. From that point on, platforming kind of changed, and there's so many ones that immediately popped in my head and I go, I can't really talk about them because they're like 10 years old. It's not relevant anymore. But things like the one that always comes up, and I defend it even though people hate Phil Fish, Fez. I really love Fez.
I haven't played that one.
It's like Super Paper Mario 2D 3D perspective, climbing and jumping and puzzle solving.
That does sound like my kind of thing, to be fair.
Yeah. If you ever watched Indie Game the movie, which features, I think it's Braid, Super Meat Boy, and Fez, you get to see him gradually break down.
It looks awesome!
Yeah, this aged very well.
I googled it. It looks so cute.
It is a lovely game.
I got it like the demo of it on the Xbox 360, and I still have not played it ever. I still need to do that.
See, this is why I have to defend Fez, because no one knows what it is.
I know what it is. I just haven't played it.
Are you a fellow Xbox girly?
No, not anymore. I just used to be. I'm just PC gaming usually.
Yeah.
And Nintendo.
Look at that. You almost had an ally.
I thought I had an ally.
Hey, every Xbox exclusive comes to PC anyways, so like.
I'm so close.
Oh my
so
gosh.
close. I need someone to team up against Cal with.
I own a
out here in my-
PS4, so you know, I own as many PlayStation consoles as Xboxes. I mean, you know, it's fair.
Yeah, sit on the fence. I'm a PlayStation boy, and it's not a good place to be when you run an indie website because we are not the home of indies. We wait 2 years for everything to come out. I say it all the time.
You just get a Switch, you know.
I have a Switch. I don't.
I've got a Switch, an Xbox, and a PS4, but I spend like good 90%, if not more, on my Xbox. It's just my favorite. I love it.
I just like I've invested in a good gaming PC, so like I get every Xbox exclusive anyways.
Yeah.
So
do you have Game Pass on it?
I mean, I can. I just don't have
Yeah,
anything I
you
need to play
should.
on it right now. But
I love game. See that's why I'm an Xbox guy. It's just Game Pass. It's so good for indies. Like the same
Yeah.
reason a lot of people complain about Game Pass. Like, oh, there's too many. And I'm like, yes, there's so many indies.
they get Persona 5. That'll keep you busy for like a month. You know.
I didn't like Persona that much. I tried it. I couldn't get into it.
No, that's technically a platformer. It has platforming on it.
Ugh.
That's a platform in the same way like Stray is a platformer where you press the button and it does it all for you.
Yeah.
no.
There's Persona 5 Strikers, which has a jump button, you know, and it counts.
It has a jump button, so that makes it all okay.
So, like, would this distinction be like either it's not a platformer or like it's a very easy platformer for some of those games?
I'd say it's like it's either a platformer by like genre definition, like it just feels like Mario essentially,
Okay.
or it just is very casual and just some like a short hike, like I said before, where it's just there are some platforming elements, but they don't really punish you or make you really engage with that part of the game at all.
Okay.
It's a little bit. I mean, the genre of video games in general is a little bit iffy. So
Yeah. It's one of those that can go in so many different ways. The only other one I don't think we've mentioned, and it deserves mentioning because it's so good, but there's only one company that ever makes them, and it's the likes of Limbo, Inside.
Oh, right.
Well, Little Nightmares is kind of in the same boat as well. Those side-scrolling kind of pseudo horror puzzlers, I think they're fantastic, but no one can make them.
I agree they're fantastic. They're just not quite what I'm looking for. Like, I enjoyed Inside. I'm glad I played Inside. I'm not so crazy hyped about it. Like most, I completely get why people are. I've got zero issues with it. It's just, for me, it's something that I will play, I will enjoy, and then I can just move on with my life. But like, it's not colourful and cute enough.
There it is. There it is.
Oh.
You knew it was going, Jack. You knew it was
The
going.
monster at the end didn't make you feel all warm inside, Malika.
I just don't engage with horror games that are scarier than Inscription, unfortunately. So
I don't engage with horror. Full stop.
Oh,
and I played VR horror, so I'm kind of out in my boat on my own.
there is like one point I wanted to make that's more on topic, which is just Nintendo and Sega tend to like abandon their franchises a lot, and like the only place where you'll get that again is indie games. Like if you like Wario Land, you got to play Pizza Tower now. There's just nothing else you get from Nintendo for that series. So like, it's like they just tend to do that a lot.
Oh, how is Pizza Tower? I've seen it as like a meme kind of game, but is it actually also like a good game too?
It's just a really good game. It's Wario Land, but with like 60 FPS 2D animation, which is insane.
Oh man,
And
I
it's
just
like-
googled it. It looks ridiculous.
It's one of those games that like expects a lot of you. It's very difficult, but like not. Like it's a very casually experienced game, but also you can be insanely good at it. There's like a massively high skill ceiling to it. It's really fun though.
All right, I've just seen all the animations. Like I can't tell if the game is like making fun of me for playing it too. For like, oh, we got you.
No, it's just trying to be Courage the Cowardly Dog, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like
but in
that
pixel
too.
art.
I feel like I'm also not in a position to talk about a lot of the PC platformers that come out because there are some of them like the kind of more difficulty specific ones, but in like an awkward sort of way that come out that I never get to play. Like the one that I discussed about a week or two ago called Bread and Fred. That looked so cool, but I'll never get near that.
Yeah, no, I wish they'd come out on at least one console. Because I've got all of them. I don't care which console. Just come out for one of them.
Get a Steam Deck. He wants one so bad.
If I had the money, Monica, it's the money.
It's very good.
Oh, Stop making me jealous.
Oh,
Flexing.
Just a little.
Naughty.
Well, I think we've pretty much exhausted the topic on platformers, and I don't think we've effectively answered the question.
I think it's like no. Is the answer.
I think for me personally, it's a yes, because Nintendo's always going to play it safe. Sega maybe less so, but with less quality. And like indie games are the only times where you'll get like super cool experimental games that are also super high quality. So it's like, I think if you want something that's more than Kirby in the Forgotten Land, even though that's a really fun and good game, it just doesn't really do anything unique. So it's like, if you want something that's more than that, indie games are like the only place you're getting that. And like more than like once every 2 years ish, probably.
yeah, do a good job
That's
at finding that niche.
Yeah.
If that's a niche.
I stand by my thing that mid-sized developers where it's at for indies.
I'd say there's room for both, but
I think you can get a lot of good across the board and a lot of bad across the board.
Yeah, I guess personally I'd say no for some things. I mean, I'd say a 2D platformer, sure, but mascot platformers, I feel like they just aren't as prevalent as they used to be.
And
I
I agree, because mascot
exists.
platformers are my preference.
Hat in Time is so good.
Your deciding
Hat in
vote.
Time was good.
My deciding vote is, I would probably say they are moving forward, because you're only going to get a mascot platformer every couple of years from the big guys, and other than that, you're not going to get anything special. I still think indies don't do some stuff that the old guys done anywhere near as well. Like I'm playing Clive and Wrench at the minute, which is the most recent mascot platformer I've played. It's janky as hell. I still love it because it just scratches that itch, but it's not good by any stretch. It's fine, and it's exactly what I wanted it to be. So I would say yes, indies are the last bastion of platforming, at least as the genre grows. If you want something that just scratches that itch, gives you the nostalgia, there's plenty that will come out every now and again. Just wait for Sony to release a new console. You'll get a Jak and Daxter or a Sly Cooper or something.
And it's like, just to like get the obligatory Metroidvania mention out there, for every Metroid Dread, there's like a Hollow Knight, Axiom Verge, Bloodstained, Cave Story, Ori, and like 20 others. And like
Yes.
Metroid Dread's like the only AAA one you're gonna get, because when has Konami made a game in the last 10 years?
No, and nor should they.
Yeah.
All right, cool. We've done well there. So that has been our chat on indie games, being the last bastion of platforming. We have said yes and no. We have said you heard it. If you want to find a little bit more about us, you can go over to indiegameculture.com. That's where we have news, reviews, lists, guides. We have socials now. I run the TikTok poorly, but you can look at it anyway.
Really good job. Genuinely good.
I'm doing my very best. I am technically a millennial by a year, so it works in my favor.
I'm a Gen Z for like 3 years. I win.
Well, there you go. Maybe you will take over. Probably would work in our favor.
I don't even have TikTok.
Well, yeah, you can go check that out. We've also got a couple of reviews coming out. I will be doing Fall of Porcupine. Melika's going to be doing Dordogne. JT is doing the Grey Hill Incident.
Yep.
That's the name of it. Monica, I don't think you're reviewing anything at the minute, as far as I know.
I could, just got
Well, you know where to find me. So that is where you can find us on all our stuff. And also, if you are listening and you've got this far, tell your friends. We're nice people. We want you to come and listen and ask us questions and show us love. So please do that. And also, thank you to Monica for joining us for this one. I am sure she will be back again with another hot button debate topic for us to discuss.
Just let me talk about Outer Wilds once, I swear.
Well, next time. So that is it, guys. Everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.